So I was just folding some clothes. I was packing my suitcase because in a few hours we're flying to Paris. We're gonna stay there for a few hours. And then we're gonna drive to a small little town. We're going to a castle. I've never been to a castle before, so we've rented it out. And as I was folding my clothes, I got a notification. I checked it and I put my phone back down. And I said, wait, why am I pretending like this has always been normal? And I saw the notification, this is what came in. A €1,657 payment. Now, I've been accustomed to these payments now, but sometimes we forget to look back and realize that we are somewhere where we once prayed for, because sometimes you're so focused on the next thing that you don't look back at how far you've come. And I go back 5 years ago when I was working in retail. I used to work on Bond Street. I used to work in Lacoste. There's a small little boutique. And where it used to be, if you guys know London, if you've been to London, if you're from London, it was right next to Selfridges. And Selfridges is like a luxury department store. And this shop was very small. And in the shop, there's a big mirror. There was this glass mirror, and I'd always stand there because not that many people came into the shop. And I would look outside of this window. I'll look outside of this window and I'd see the cars that were parked outside because the luxury department store was there, so they would just leave their car parked there. It was Rolls Royce, Lamborghini, Ferrari. And whenever I would go on my break, I would go past Selfridges and people would literally just leave their car in front. They would get a parking ticket because they just didn't care. I'd see every single Ferrari, G-Wagons, and I think to myself, I want this. And I pretended like I wanted less, but the reality is that if you were to offer me that, I would take it. So then I said, wait, so how can I get it? I have to work hard for it. And I realized that that's something that I wasn't accustomed to, because I realized to work and get something like that is going to be hard. So I had to become someone who can do hard things. And it's crazy because this is something that I've always wanted, just to have the location freedom to go to Paris when I want. Last week I was in London. I stayed at a 5-star hotel at the Nomad. A few weeks before that, I was in Dubai. I was in Turkey. I was in Germany. And the only way that I've managed to do that is by being able to have a personal brand. And before I even get into that, before you even start thinking, how do you start a personal brand? I want to give you guys the biggest mindset shift that I had to make to actually change my life. Because I was someone exactly like you. You're probably thinking, how do you start a personal brand? How do I make online money? That was the only thing I was ever fixated on, the how. So I'd go into crypto, I'd go into trading, I'd go into Amazon FBA, drop shipping. I would just try to find the quickest method. And the moment I didn't ever see the results happening, or I'll start losing money, I'll get so frustrated and I'd go into the next thing and go into the next thing and never make anything happen. And then I'd question myself, like, am I ever going to make it? Is this ever going to happen? Am I just being delusional? Am I being stupid? And it's crazy because that's how most people live. And you need to understand that it's not about the how, it's about the who. If you want a successful business, you have to be the person that's going to create it. And like anything, you hear this all of the time by your best motivational speaker, by reading books, your favorite athletes. What do they always say? Never give up. It's going to be hard. So you just hear the word hard. But when you actually go through it and feel it, you start to become surprised that you're going through it. You start to get upset. That is exactly what you were meant to expect. And I didn't understand this back then because I was someone who was very emotional. And this is something I want to speak to today, because once you learn to conquer your emotions, that's when you're actually going to achieve everything that you want in life. Because at the end of the day, your emotions create these feelings, and these feelings end up dictating the things that you do. And I remember I used to be someone who was very inconsistent, and I would fall into these emotions. Like the moment I felt upset, I wanted everyone to know that I was upset because I wanted them to pity me, because I wanted to feel good. And it's the feeling of sadness and the feeling of shame, the feeling of guilt, it felt safe. Like I'd always go back into it. And then after, I just feel regret, like, why did I do that? And I'd always just make irrational decisions. And the moment I realized that the key, the cheat code to actually being someone consistent is realizing that you have to learn to conquer self, if not you'll be conquered by self. The key is to stay consistent. Don't get overly excited when things go good. Don't get overly upset when things go bad. Because what ends up happening is you get too excited, you get these feelings raised up. Now you act based on that feeling. So guess what? Now there's no constant, because you act super motivated and then you act super depressed when it doesn't go your way. The key is don't let a win get to your head, and don't let a loss get to your heart, because they're just a bad moment. It's just a good moment. You want to keep on continuing, and you just want to keep on creating more good moments. And the thing is, sometimes we feel so entitled that we always want good moments, or we expect a certain outcome, that the moment we don't have it, we get frustrated. The only reason you get frustrated is because you're being ungrateful. And when you are ungrateful, that means that you're looking into the future, which creates an anxiety inside you, because you're thinking, am I ever going to make this happen? Am I being delusional? Is it going to happen? It changes the way that you feel. It creates emotions, and emotions are energy emotions. They cannot be destroyed. They can only be transferred. And that's when people start to self-sabotage, and that's when your very desire ends up being your biggest curse, because now every step that you do, is it going to happen? You start getting stressed out. Then you go back to the past. What could have I done differently? Should I have went to university? Should I have chosen a different career path? And that's exactly how I lived for a very long time, until I finally made the decision. I said to myself, I'm tired of one moment feeling happy, the next moment feeling sad. And this is why I ended up doing this. I'm going to show you. I'm going to bring you guys with me. Let me turn on this light. You're coming with me into my office. And the reason I want to show you this is because this is the moment I had enough. I said, I really want to make change. And I don't know who's seen this video right now, but I just want you to know something. Look. This. All right. Look. This. Let me close my curtains. All right, look, this is a $100 bill. Here it says, it's not going to be easy. You're gonna wanna give up. Don't. It's all gonna be worth it. The 18th 10th 2025. That was a $100 bill that when I was working in a different retail store, Scotch and Soda, a woman gave it to me because I wanted to do some volunteering work, go to South Africa, help kids in needs, and I had to basically do fundraising. I didn't know how to do fundraising. She said, hey, I'm gonna be your first person. And the back of it is my payslip when I used to work at a gym where I made no money at this gym. I had to be a personal trainer. The clients had to pay the gym £70, and out of the £70, I think I'll take like £13 out. It was ridiculous. So I had to end up charging in cash because I wouldn't make enough money to even survive. But anyway, that wasn't the point. Now, that's when I made the decision that I was actually going to stay focused and never give up, burn all the boats. And I said, what is the worst that can happen? I realized something very quickly, that these emotions, all they do is it creates fear. Fear is a projection of a possible negative outcome of the future, that you end up living it so much that it ends up making you feel a type of way that you never take action, that idea only ever stayed an idea. And the moment you had it, it made you feel so alive that now you don't take action. So now you get frustrated because you saw the possibility that you could have had. And that's why I tell you guys, going back to controlling your emotions, what most people do is they have access to information like ChatGPT, and all it does is it ends up being you're suffering, because knowledge isn't power. Applied knowledge is power. Because knowledge without action is having the cure, but you're still sick, and you're looking at the cure and you don't know why you're not taking it. It's because of fear. And action can only be taken in the present. And understanding that your emotions, if you don't learn to control them, you will never be able to take action. Why? Because if you're happy, if you're feeling fine, you'll take the action. If you don't, then you won't take the action. So you'll be expending all of this energy going nowhere. That's why the secret on controlling your emotions is by making sure that you stay present, focusing on the 24 hours that you have ahead of you, because you can't guarantee tomorrow. There's so many people that wanted to wake up today that didn't. So you need to have this long view with what you want. You need to have micro patience, and you need to have macro patience, and micro urgency. You need to know what you want and realize it's going to take some time, but attack it relentlessly every single day. And that's why many people get this anxiety. That's why many people get so frustrated and stressed out, because they think, is it going to come about? It ends up affecting the way they feel, ends up affecting the way that they take action. Eventually they take no action, which guarantees you're never going to get there. I'm so glad that I continued. And that's why I told you, stop trying to skip steps. Become someone that you're proud of first. Become someone who's disciplined. Become someone who can actually take action. Now, this was just a raw video, and I don't need this to go viral and me hit the algorithm, and that's all I would focus on before, and it would affect the way that I would give my message. But as long as this hits the right person, then I have to realize that the goal was never the outcome. The goal was becoming the person who can create the outcome. What you're seeking for is fulfillment. You don't need the outcome to feel fulfilled. You need to know that you've done everything that you could do at the best of your ability today, and go to sleep with your head on that pillow, proud of what you did. That's the most important thing. And that's the mindset shift that changed my life. Don't focus on tomorrow. What did you learn from yesterday? And give everything today. So if you like this video, let me know what was your biggest takeaway. Put it down in the comment section below. If you haven't liked, subscribe. And if you've been feeling like you've been procrastinating, that you want to lock in and you really want to start making changes, but you want that accountability because you know that's what you're lacking, DM me on Instagram ready, and it's time to get to fucking work. Because realize that every day that you let go by is proof that you don't want it as much as you do. The last thing you're gonna do is wake up 10 years from now realizing that you're at the same place because you were too afraid to start. Get by the corner, and I'll make sure that you become the person you want to be. Love you guys.